Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important segment. I'm going to read you public record sources, reputable sources that nobody nobody would have an issue with. Okay? When President Trump talks about the billions of dollars that the President Obama's administration gave to the country of Iran, what he is saying is that this money used to be frozen. It suddenly was unfrozen. So the fact checkers, in their maniacal, rabid, and petulant manner, say, well, Trump said that President Obama gave them the $1 billion. No. President Obama's administration basically allowed them, by one estimate from foreignpolicy.com, $300 billion. We'll get to that in a second. $150 billion or $55 billion. There are different sums that people agree on, okay? But regardless, the money was frozen. Iran could not get to it. It doesn't matter if it was theirs in 1979. The point was, the international community that Democrats love so much needed some leverage over a country that wanted that has stated it has a nuclear program. They wanted leverage to ensure that they wouldn't continue with their program. President Obama gave them every single incentive to continue. Number one, we'll get to that in a second, but here, Los Angeles Times, $1.7 billion payment to Iran was all in cash due to effectiveness of sanctions, White House says. Los Angeles Times, September 7, 2016, Associated Press. Reporting from Washington, the Obama administration is acknowledging its transfer of $1.7 billion to Iran earlier this year was made entirely in cash, using non-U.S. currency, as Republican critics of the transaction continue to denounce the payments. Okay. The $1.7 billion was the settlement of a decades-old arbitration claim between the U.S. and Iran. Okay, it doesn't matter if at one point we had owed them the money, or if they had, if the $150 billion was theirs technically. The point was it was frozen for a reason. So the and what was the reason? The reason was the same reason that President Obama and other countries signed the Iran deal, to dissuade them, to ensure they wouldn't continue with their program, which they were continuing. And I'll get to that in a moment. But the $1.7 billion payment to Iran was all in cash due to effectiveness of sanctions. So Trump is right when he talks about President Obama's administration giving them billions of dollars. In this case, $1.7 billion just in cash. Fine, it wasn't U.S. currency, and President Obama didn't give them the money himself. So what? How is that a rebuttal? The issue is that, again, I know it's very difficult to understand if you're a Democrat, but the money withheld from that country was leverage, pressure, incentive to give up their nuclear program. Forget about the ethics or the morality or what's fair. Forget about whether or not they have the right to have a program, or whether North Korea has the right to have a program. Forget about that. The point is the $1.7 billion payment to Iran was all in cash. White House says this is the Associated Press, September 7th, 2016. I'll read it to you again. Reporting from Washington, the Obama administration is acknowledging its transfer of $1.7 billion to Iran earlier this year was made entirely in cash using non-U.S. currency. Okay. How do we know that that was a bad deal? How do we know that was not something that was good? Well, since that transfer of cash, this is Fox News by Rich Edson, Iran has fired 23 ballistic missiles since start of 2015 nuclear deal. Okay. This is January 25th, 2018 by Rich Edson, Fox News. Iran has aggressively pursued its ballistic missile program since agreeing to the 2015 nuclear deal, regularly launching nuclear-capable missiles in what critics consider a violation of the spirit of the deal. Okay? So, of course they were continuing their program. The report shows Iran has fired some 23 missiles since signing the deal, as many as 16 of them nuclear capable. Okay, tell me again how President Obama was so brilliant with this fantastic deal. Then you have not only a $1.7 billion cash payment, and then 23 ballistic missile tests after the cash payment. You also get Los Angeles Times, August 30th, 2017. Shashank Bengali, Ramin Mostaqim, Los Angeles Times, August 30th, 2017. Iran says military sites are off limits for nuclear inspections despite U.S. pressure. Well, that's really great, isn't it? $1.7 billion in cash. By one estimate, $300 billion. Foreignpolicy.com has an article, Iran's $300 billion shakedown. And it goes on to say how much Iran will. This is by is April 16, 2015, by David Rothkopf. How much Iran actually will make off sanctions relief is unclear, but based on the calculation that its overseas assets will total north of $120 billion, and the equally reasonable estimate that Iran may gain in excess of $20 billion a year in oil revenues, you end up with a 15-year deal that would result in a relative gain of $420 billion. But wait, there's more. Let's get back to Iran says military sites are off limits. Oh, I'm sorry. So they test 23 missiles, and also their military sites are off limits because the wonderful, brilliant Iran deal that John Kerry and Democrats and President Obama presided over, that they're so proud of, that the EU is so proud of. Los Angeles Times, Iran says military sites are off limits for nuclear inspections. Oh, that's good. Let's give you $1.7 billion in cash. According to foreignpolicy.com, up to $420 billion over 15 years. Around $150 billion, a higher estimate, let's say $120 billion. And you can go ahead and test 23 missiles, and you can tell monitors that your military sites are off limits. That's really great. That's a fantastic deal. That's a really fantastic deal. So, Iran says military sites are off limits for nuclear inspection despite U.S. pressure. Reporting from Tehran, as the Trump administration calls for stricter monitoring of the Iranian nuclear agreement, officials in Iran insist they are complying with its terms and will not allow international inspectors into military sites. Wow, that is fantastic. So, tell us again how this is a fantastic, amazing deal that kept the world safer. It's not. It's not. Okay? Then you get a Associated Press fact check. The $1.8 billion actually, and this is a fact check. When was it? Oh my God. December 25th, 2018. What the truth? This is a post-truth moment with Trump. The $1.8 billion. And they're talking about what Trump revisits old fictions about Iran money. The $1.8 billion, actually $1.7 billion, was a debt owed to Iran, which bought military equipment from the U.S. that it never received because relations ruptured when the Shah was overthrown in 1979. So what? The whole point was, again, you don't allow a country whose government, and by the way, I love the Iranian people. God bless the Iranian people. I love Persian people, Iranian people. I love them. They're wonderful. I'm just talking about the government. The whole point was that it was frozen. The money was frozen for a reason. For a reason. So, the $1.7 billion was frozen for a reason as leverage. Even if they're owed the money in some sense, the point is there are economic sanctions now. Is it right to impose sanctions? No. I mean, it depending on if the goal is to pressure a country not to engage in a nuclear program because you feel the country might start, create a scenario of Armageddon or the apocalypse, then maybe sanctions are warranted. But President Obama engaged in sanctions also before the deal. The deal was a horrendous deal. They got a $1.7 billion cash payment, and depending on your calculation, either $120 billion or $150 billion, or a 15-year a 15-year deal that would, if it continued for 15 years, it would be $420 billion. And like President Trump stated, this wasn't approved by Congress. It wasn't approved by the Senate. And eventually it would have ended, leaving Iran with the program that it still was continuing. So they definitely won that negotiation. $1.7 billion in cash payment, $120 billion to $150 billion in assets that were unfrozen. And they then responded by firing and testing 23 missiles, most of which were capable of launching a nuke. So, and then they stated their military sites were off limits. Okay. Then Democrats say, well, he's escalating tensions. Well, then get out. We need to get out. This is President Trump with Laura Ingraham. And you want to talk about anti-war? Well, he's the closest thing we've had. Maybe since Reagan, because Reagan at least didn't topple governments like President Obama in Libya and Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld. But listen to this. He wants to remove Americans from Iraq and Afghanistan. That is not the stated goal of Clinton. The stated goal is the opposite, to remain there forever and to increase our presence. This is why you vote Trump, not Clinton. And when she runs again and wins the nomination again in 2020, this is why you vote Trump and not Clinton. Here's President Trump. Okay, hold on one second. All right, here we go.
And she's another beauty. I mean, take a look at her past. Check out her past, please.
The Iraqi Prime Minister has notified Mike Pompeo about potential plans, drawing up plans for a U.S. troop withdrawal from Iraq, period. You ran on pulling out of the Middle East. Why not use this opportunity to say, we're done?
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it. Meaning, that's Trump speak for, yeah, I'd love to. He's also he has to play both sides somewhat, because he knows that the establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans will converge upon him if he states we're going to leave right now. But he wants to bring home Americans. He already removed Americans from a hot spot in Syria that Democrats didn't want to happen. And none of the atrocities that they said would take place took place. Okay? Just like there was no war or widespread military conflict with Iran. They stood down. Just like he didn't work with Russia to buy Facebook ads and hack the DNC to give Clinton the popular vote, but somehow making her lose in swing states, causing Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign, all because they cheated Bernie. All because, Russia informed us that they were cheating Bernie. And Bernie will be cheated again. Ever wonder why Pelosi waited so long? Now the senators have to stay in Washington instead of campaign in Iowa. Guess who's a senator? Bernie Sanders. So, Pete Buttigieg could win Iowa. I could see Buttigieg winning Iowa. But here.
By the way,
you're okay with removing our troops
just so you understand, that's what they say publicly. They don't say that privately. Because if we leave, that means they're not going to be able to handle it. I'm not so bad with it.
So that's he's like, I'm not so bad with it. I'm not so bad with it.
When I heard that, I said, I have it down to 5,000 troops. We had many, many troops there in Iraq. And we're there only in a training. We train them. But if they want us to leave, but they speak different publicly than they do privately.
But aren't we sending more troops to the region as we speak?
We're sending more to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is paying us for it. We're doing something that nobody's ever done. I said to Saudi Arabia,
So what he wants to do is bring home Americans. That is his stated goal. The interesting thing with President Trump is that he'll engage in that military strike against the general, and Democrats and media will say, oh my God, he's starting a conflict, a war, oh my God. Then that doesn't happen. He'll send warships, and then there's even greater leverage for them to sign a deal, a nuclear deal that actually gives that where we'll get assurances that they don't continue, where we'll check their military sites, and where they don't get to launch missiles and test missiles out. Okay? Unlike President Obama's deal. And here, this is a very, very... I'll do a segment on this, but this is actually, and you could look this up, this is by Teresa Welsh. This is August 5th, 2015. White House nearly certain Iran will fund... And then it's the T word that I can't really say on YouTube, but it's obviously activity that is meant to, target innocent people. The war against fill in the blank. Okay, senior Obama administration official told a Senate panel Wednesday that it's nearly certain Iran will continue funding the T word, with the tens of billions of dollars it stands to gain if Congress approves a nuclear deal that would lift economic sanctions on the country. Okay. So the Senate didn't approve it. But so the Obama administration already stated that they're still going to fund the groups that engage in that activity. So the whole thing was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Give me your thoughts below. President Trump is 100% right. He's reversing the cash payment and everything that took place. See, being an anti-war president doesn't mean that you don't engage in any military. He's not a pacifist. However, his stated goal is to remove Americans from the Middle East, not to keep them there forever, like President Obama and Bush and Clinton and everyone on that Democratic Party debate stage, including Bernie Sanders. Notice how Bernie Sanders isn't saying bring our soldiers home. In fact, the last time he stated something on, it has to be an orderly withdrawal. So he wasn't even happy with the Syria withdrawal. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you so very much. Check out H.A. Goodman's other channel right now.